Good evening, fellow Toastmasters, and welcome to the District 83 Enrichment Program. Today, we will be discussing how to hybrid. Toastmasters all over the world have found a need to embrace change, which for some of us includes holding hybrid meetings that engage our members. I hope that you will leave this session with some new ideas or even a few tweaks that you can make to help your club continue to strive. I will post in the chat a very short feedback form and ask that you share your thoughts at the end of this session. And for those of you who have asked, this session will be recorded. The facilitator this evening for How to Hybrid is James Manganiello. Manganiello. Got it right that time. James lives in Riverhead, New York, and has been a Toastmaster since 2019. Since that time, he has accomplished an enormous number of accolades, and I can't even cover them all tonight because it would take up the whole hour. James has held several club officer roles, including president, vice president of membership, and vice president of public relations. He has also served in his home district 119 as area director and division director, plus the district logistics manager and the district public relations technical advisor. He has served as an organization mentor, a club mentor, and performed various contest roles on all levels from club to international. James has the mantra, I refuse to quit, which encompasses many of his passions and undertakings, both in and out of Toastmasters. In today's session on how to hybrid, James will cover some important elements to be successful. This includes the why you do hybrid, location, equipment, efficiency, and pitfalls. And questions and answer session will be available at the end of the presentation. Fellow Toastmasters, let's welcome distinguished Toastmaster James Manganiello.
Thank you, Pamela. Two quick corrections. One, I have not been, I'm not in a division director. I haven't gotten that, earned that yet, and I haven't earned the DTM yet, but I'm still working for it. Good evening, fellow Toastmasters of District 83. Thank you very much for actually having me today. I'll tell you this much. In the 3 years we've been going hybrid, I've learned one lesson. You got to stay on your toes from the moment you come in to the moment you leave. But let's go back to the beginning for a second. When the pandemic hit, we all got blindsided to the fact that we couldn't meet in person. That's something we were all traditionally used to doing. We had to adapt. And when we adapted, we transitioned to Zoom meetings. And for the past few years, and I've worked the contest, we went through every level, club, area, division, district, regional, and international to compete. But as a club, how do we grow when we still have the challenges of trying to integrate the technology from the Zoom aspect into the real world? It's not always easy. There's a lot of moving parts that this contains. The first question, it's like real estate. Location is important. Where do you want to hold your hybrid meetings? If your club was established before 2019, you had a meeting space. The question is it still available? If it is, I highly recommend you use it. Now, if it was created after the pandemic, this is going to be new to you. The question I'd ask is, on your club banner, what's the home location say? That might actually help you a little bit. As far as sources that you want to look up, um, by the way, grab a pen. You might want to write some of this stuff down in here today. It'll come in handy. Easiest place you want to look up, libraries. They're your best bet because they have everything there. They have the drop-down video so you could project the video. They should have an HDMI plug in the wall so you could plug in the laptop directly into their video. So what people in the room see is what you see on your Zoom. And a little tip, you may be able to get somebody from the library enrolled in your club, which is a nice little tip. You can do as far as why do you want to go hybrid? This is more of a transitional period, like what we were doing for Zoom a couple of years ago. We want to go hybrid because I know it's not said directly. I think we're trying to move back to the way the meetings were traditionally were in 2019. No technology, all in person. I don't know that for sure, but that's just a hunch from what I've been seeing. The other reason why you want to go hybrid is to grow and increase your club membership. Now, this is important because when we had 2019, a lot of people were traditional. They said they wanted to meet in person. We went Zoom. I don't want to be on Zoom. I'd rather be in person. This is the time to actually target those people and say, hey, we're actually hybrid. We meet in person once a month. We meet on Zoom. So once you come back, to actually go back to your public speaking goals. So it's a nice way to actually contact some of those people. Another thing is you could expand your reach and increase participation. Now, there's a lot of people with a lot of circumstances in life. What happened in the past 5 years? Some people got married. Some people have to take care of people at home. They may not have the opportunity because of time commitments or time constraints that they can't physically attend a meeting. Zoom is what we've been able to integrate. But now that we have it integrated, integrating hybrid, they could say, can I bring my kids or can I bring somebody with me? So that actually brings another opportunity to it. That's the way you have to look at the whole hybrid. It's an opportunity to grow, not just for yourself, but also for your club. Now, for the big question, what equipment do you need? Your cell phone will do it, but will not exactly do everything. The cell phone can handle Zoom. You can install Zoom on your phone, but I'll tell you, the microphone on the phone will pick up everything in the room. So if someone is up giving a speech and a couple people are there are talking, your phone will pick it up. So the one thing I would recommend is if you can have like a dedicated microphone, we use a Bluetooth microphone, an external Bluetooth microphone that actually places in the room, connects to the laptop. So this way everybody in the room can be heard. That's one option. Another option you could do, let me see if I could grab it, is something like this. It's a little microphone, plugs into your phone. It works like a regular plug-in microphone to there, but it's wireless. The only advantage to it is you're the only person heard. So if you're introducing a speaker as your table as the Toastmaster of the day, hi, I'd like to introduce Pamela Johnson, you hand the microphone over to them. So this way they would be able to speak. If you did a Bluetooth microphone, the placement of the microphone would be in the room just so everybody could be heard. The only thing you would want is you want a Zoom master in when you go to a hybrid. So this way they're watching everything that goes on. But we'll get to that in a second. As far as the equipment that you need to go hybrid, your internet signal is the most important thing that you need. Without a signal, it's going to be a nightmare on a data plan. And honestly, I don't think you want to play with that. Most libraries do have Wi-Fi, so you just have to have access to their Wi-Fi. A big tip you'll run into when we went hybrid, a lot of people bring their devices into the library. So you're contending with an open Wi-Fi network. Best recommendation, if you have somebody at home that's hardwired into their network, make them the host. Because if your signal, pardon the term, cops out and cuts because there's too many people in the room, the person online has the connection. All you got to do is reboot your computer. A quick story. 2 years ago, when we were hybrid, we were at the Emma Clark Library in Setauket. We're connected. I'm the host of the account. I called our VPE. I said, hey, Rob, can I make you host? He says, why? And I heard a lot of people walking around upstairs. He said, I got a feeling we may lose signal. We're in the middle of the meeting. Someone online is giving a speech. And I look over at one person. She's going, I got no signal. And another person said the same thing. And my signal went out. I had my VPE in the phone. I called him. I said, hey, we lost signal. We're going to reboot. Just let us back in. He says, no problem. We rebooted, we got back in. The person online still gave their speech like it was not an issue because their signal was consistent. So always make sure you have a solid signal. If you're going to be going hybrid, send the signal, give the connection to somebody at home. As far as what equipment you need, the internet signal is a given. A laptop, a tablet, or a mobile phone and just make sure you have Zoom installed. I will give you a tip. If you have a laptop and a cell phone going, and your laptop is the primary account, you can make a sub account with Zoom. It's easy to make an account. So this way you have a second device. So this way you're not straight, what's the term? You're not strapped because if you have the same Zoom ID installed on both, what's going to happen is you sign in on the computer. Okay, you open the phone. Guess what? It's the same ID. Whoop, everything goes over to the phone. So it's always good to have two IDs, your primary and your backup, just in case. An optional idea when you go hybrid is an external camera. You could do your cell phone or a tablet. You just have to place it accordingly. So if you have the tablet, you place the tablet so it's in the middle of the room so everyone can see. And you also have it shown in gallery view. So when people in the room are looking at the tablet, they see everybody online. A bonus option could be a laptop with an HDMI output, which can go to the video screen. So this way, everybody's not doing this. They're just looking at the bigger screen. That's your basic on the equipment. If you want to do a minimalist version of it, all you need is a laptop and a tablet or a phone. And that's your basic minimalist hybrid. But still, I'd recommend the laptop because you could see more on a laptop than you could do on a phone. The fourth step, this is the most important. Get all the club officers involved. We got 7 officers. Everybody's got to be all hands on deck on this. When it comes to going hybrid, one person could be the Zoom master, but if there's a guest that walks in, VPM's got to do it. If they're Zoom master, they can't do both. So if the VPM actually has to handle the guest, Zoom master should actually just take care of the meeting. For hybrid meetings to work efficiently, the person who should be the Zoom master, believe it or not, is your sergeant at arms. And I know this because when I was logistics manager, the logistics manager is the district level sergeant at arms. And when I was logistics manager, I was Zoom master for a lot of contests. So I've seen a lot of stuff, but we want to get you going at the club level. You want to get the basics. What you want to do is once the meeting is going, have your agenda, make sure everything is followed. Whoever's Zoom master, just keep tabs, making sure if people have their microphones on, which can happen, mute them if necessary, and unmute if necessary. Just want to have everything functionally run smoothly. As far as the meeting, try to get your sergeant at arms trained on Zoom. I've done 3 versions of Zoom basics, contest, and hybrid that are all on YouTube. I'll provide Pamela the links. I highly recommend checking them out. I tried to make it as simple as possible. Once the sergeant at arms learns the Zoom master, they'll help you out. Now, I can tell you this. I've been Zoom Master to 53 contests because I'm proficient. The one thing, like when you're learning a Toastmaster role, if you want to learn timer, you learn it very well. So this way you'd run a proficient job. It's the same when you're doing a Zoom master for a hybrid meeting. You want to make sure everything runs smoothly. And I think it's good for everybody to actually take a turn doing it, whether you're a club officer or a member interested in learning more. And the reason why I recommend that is everybody gets engaged, everybody gets involved, everybody has a different role, and you're contributing to the functionality of the meeting. Now, we've run into this for the past couple of years. Zoom bombers. I'm just going to address this one very simply. When you're talking about a Zoom bomber, you're talking about having an open link, meaning that when you actually have your either free host page, your social media page, or even Easy Speak, you have the Zoom link listed on that. I wouldn't recommend that. What you can do, there's a website called Bitly. Let me type that out in the chat really quickly. EIT dot, if I can spell it. It's a link shortener. So what happens is when you have your Zoom link, you post that into Bitly, right? So when you have your Zoom link set up, so this way people have to register, you actually go to Bitly, put that link in there. It shortens the link. So it's not this astronomical link with letters and numbers. Get a little link this big. You post that on your social media pages, it takes them to the shortened link. So this way it makes it easier. Now, for your members, what you could do is you can make a shortened version of your Zoom link as a bit.ly. So all they have to do is click that button. It takes them into the Zoom. I'm all about simple when it comes to stuff. I like things simple to make it functional so everything can work. The other option you could do, and I've done this, in Free Host Toast, when you sign up for roles for meetings, whoever your administrator is, have them edit the template for that meeting style, put the Zoom link right up there. So this way, when you go into the agenda to see what's going on for your meeting, oh, Zoom link, boom, click, and you're in. The one thing I recommend about the hybrid, I think that's really important, you try. You try, you experiment, and you make mistakes. You learn, you try again. It doesn't have to be complicated. And this is my favorite line. Things don't have to be complicated. It just has to be effective. And if it's effective, it's duplicatable. Duplicatable in the sense that you could run the hybrid, your sergeant at arms could run the hybrid, anybody could run it. So once you learn it, teach it. It's the same as teaching every other role. When someone wants to learn grammarian, okay, they try it. They learn, they get better. Zoom, going hybrid with Zoom is the same way. But I think the most important thing is the communication with each other. How did this go? Oh, we could have fixed this. Okay, a lessons learned, so you have something to practice for next time. I try to keep things as simple as I can. So, Pamela, back to you guys. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
Thank you for that, James. I ask for anyone who has a question, you could either raise your virtual hand or type a question in the chat box. It just makes it easier for us as opposed to everyone shouting out. But I did see a question in the chat box that was posted by Jason, and he asked, given the options, which format is better, simultaneous hybrid or alternating virtual in person?
It's a good question. Good question, Jason. The question is this: if you're going to be going hybrid, is the space you're going to be using available for the 2 times a month that you'd be having the meeting? It's a big question. In our case, Emma Clark Library, we could only get it the second Saturday of the month. The fourth Saturday, we have to go Zoom. If there's a schedule change, they may move us to a different room. But the other room did still have the functionality of the internet access and a television, so we were still able to function the hybrid the same way. But it's actually up to it. I wouldn't say it would be my decision, it would be an officer decision. And I believe the officer should decide, okay, if we're going to go hybrid, what equipment do we need? How much is it going to cost? Technically, you just bring your own stuff. You don't have to make it complicated. Use your cell phone, bring a battery charger for the cell phone because when you run video with it, it drains it, and have a power strip for the laptops. Pretty simple. As far as simultaneous hybrid, alternating virtual in person, we alternate virtual and in person. I've heard of people that do a constant hybrid from meeting to meeting. But the challenge you have to remember is if the person with the devices that you're bringing is not available, you got to be able to get that stuff. You need to be able to tap into the host account so you could still run the Zoom meeting. So there's a lot of moving parts. I think the most important thing to it is communication with everybody to find out, okay, who's got the laptop, who's got the host account, who's got this, that. It's like going to a party. Who's bringing the chips? Who's bringing the dip? Who's got the soda? Same kind of thing.
Yeah, thank you. Sue Brooks had put something in the chat earlier, just mentioning because when you were talking about Bitly, and she just gave some information about it being a free account. She believes you can get 10 free links. I'm not sure per month. Is that correct to your
So,
knowledge?
something like that. But if your Zoom, when you have your meetings, if it's a fixed Zoom ID, I'm sorry, a fixed hyperlink to get into the Zoom, you just need to make the bit.ly once.
Mhm.
Now, if you're going to be hosting contests and you want to set up a different Zoom ID, that's usually the best thing to do. The backup ID. Um, Hang on a second. Let me answer Lewis. If we have a shoddy internet connection at our library location, any suggestions? Um, Oh, I've noticed this. This is going to be a risky one to do. I haven't tried it. The library also has something called intranet. It's their fixed internet signal, which is what they use for their connections. Ask permission if you could have access to that because it's going to be secured. You may have to ask a couple of people for that, but if you're able to access that, it's different than the public Wi-Fi. It's more of a direct connection, but I would contact someone at the facilities who would be able to advise that better than I can. Let's see. Please repeat info about backup ID. Backup ID. Were you referring to a backup Zoom master or okay.
This is Avril. You mentioned something about, and I'm sorry I missed that, but you mentioned something that if you're using multiple devices to make sure that you have a backup ID.
Oh, oh, yeah, make a secondary Zoom ID. Basically, when you create a Zoom account, you make a free account, right? You go to zoom.com, you sign up to create an account, and you usually choose a free account. I have the pro version, which is the paid one, because our meeting runs for 2 hours.
Mhm.
And Zoom gives you a window of 40 minutes on the free account. So since we were actually a 2 hour meeting, I chose to upgrade my Zoom. So this way I'm not not
Oh, okay,
limited on
okay.
time. The reason why, if you have a pro account, that's great. If you have a free account, that's great. But if you're going to be using multiple devices, make a second ID. By second ID, just use a different email address. Or you could use somebody else's email from the club. So this way you have assigned into one ID and somebody else is signed into a second ID, but you're both accessing the same Zoom link for the
Okay,
meeting.
so basically, if I'm understanding, is just basically have two different devices signed into the account.
No, two different devices signed into different accounts.
Okay.
So basically, I have my Zoom ID. I'm signed into my account. Sue has her Zoom ID. She signed into her account. Same thing. You're just on two different devices, but you're just in the same space using the same Zoom link for the meeting. Does that make sense?
No, but let's skip that.
No, no, no. It's important. It's important.
It is important.
Think of it this way. We have, I'm doing the math, 17 people on the call. We are all on 17 different devices.
Mhm,
Same Zoom link.
mhm,
It's the same concept. So when you go to the club meeting, I have my laptop, you have your phone. We're still accessing the same Zoom ID to get to the same Zoom.
mhm.
That's the
Oh,
basic gist of it.
oh, okay. Got it.
But if it's the same person, like I'm bringing my laptop and my phone, I just need a different, like I use the I refuse to quit email for this. I have to use a different email for this device. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
Okay. Just use a different, okay. Okay.
Yes. Anybody else
Okay.
have any questions?
And thank you, Sue, for posting some more information in there. I wanted to add this for those of you who may not be aware, because I am finding a lot of clubs are not aware. If you have a club Zoom account and you're paying full price, do not pay full price. Toastmasters International offers a discount code where you can get it at 50% off.
Wow.
So if you have not taken advantage of that, I suggest that you do so.
Is there anything we'll need to show them or send them or?
Let me look it up. It's actually on the Toastmasters website. Let me see if I can find it while we're on this call and I'll post it.
Yeah.
Ben had a question. He says, in our club's hybrid meeting, it is difficult to see all in-person attendees. Could you suggest ways to make it possible to see all attendees, including both in-person and virtual attendees?
That's a good question, Ben. One of the things when you're actually setting up the hybrid meeting is the positioning of your camera. When you position the camera, you want to have it set to a point that you could actually see the entire room, but everybody looks this big. We run into that. There are someone from our club picked this up. She was the one who picked up the Bluetooth microphone. This is a little bit pricey. They have a camera, an external camera that plugs into your laptop through USB, controlled by a remote. And the Bluetooth microphone, the external one, connects to it. So if I'm speaking back here, or if the camera's back here, and Pamela, I'm going to borrow you for an example. You're about 10 feet away, and everybody in the room can hear you. When you come in across this way on Zoom and you can't be heard, there's a Zoom feature on that remote. So having that, Pamela will go from talking like this, start zooming in. So you could actually hear them really well. It actually focuses in better. I don't have the link for that. I could probably find it. You could look it on Amazon. I know it would probably be a Bluetooth microphone set for Zoom meetings. I'll see if I can get the name for that, and I'll get the information to you, Pamela.
Thank you.
I have a couple of things I can add to that.
Please do.
Yeah, hi, I'm Ravi Shankar from Cosmopolitan Toastmasters. We've been running hybrid meetings for a while, and more than the camera, I feel that the mic is the problem, especially if the mics are facing each other. It could cause the boom.
The
It happened at
overlap.
our first couple of meetings, and so we have a policy that all the mics are muted except for the one in the front. And so, like an in-person meeting, the person has to come into the front and talk. So to answer Ben's question, anybody can have a laptop open anywhere. They just have to keep their mic and their speaker um, muted. So you can have lots of pictures, but the mic is there from the central camera or central laptop in the room. So we technically we usually have two laptops, but we could have a third laptop as well, which I think we might have to do that to get different angles of the room, and they just show up in different windows.
That's a good point, Ravi. Very good. Oh, by the way, here's a tip for you. If you're doing table topics during your meeting, remember, everybody on Zoom could vote in the poll that you do in Zoom, but the in-person attendees can't. So the one thing I'd recommend is if you could find a way to do the poll online and post the link in the chat so everybody could access it, like a Google form. You could actually just put all the information in the Google form and just share the link and people could vote. That may actually integrate both the people in person and online. It's just that somebody needs to manage it. But that's when it comes down to, like with the when it comes to the hybrid meetings, someone's just got to watch the microphones. Whoever your Zoom master is, just like in a contest, Zoom master has to watch to make sure people have their microphones muted if they're not speaking and unmuted if they are speaking. But in hybrid, it's more complicated because in the midst of the meeting, someone could say something that's completely related to what's going on, but they may not be heard online because of the fact that that microphone could only pick up a certain range. That's the challenge. One person brought two laptops. This is really extensive. He had one laptop that had the camera pointed to the room, right? He also had a second laptop, different ID, with a microphone that's placed in the room. So he can control whether or not to mute it or unmute it. But the thing is, when you add different things like this, it's just a lot of moving parts, and you just need to have somebody manage it. That's always the issue. And when people unmute, yeah, we get the feedback. We go through that too. You just have to be consciously aware of what's going on. Like right now, I have the chat open, but the one thing you should do, have the participant list open. See who's got their microphone on or off. That will actually help point you in the right direction. As far as equipment, um, I use most of the time on like for the meeting yesterday, I just use a pair of AirPods and I just keep it muted on my phone. For the external microphones, you don't have to go crazy like getting a Shure SM58 microphone and an interface. That's pricey because the SM58 is the stage microphone. It's known as unidirectional. You only hear it in one direction. You don't want something that's a dynamic microphone, which actually you hear everything around because this will be louder, this will be softer. Over there, you just hear just a little whisper. You want something that's more of a Bluetooth microphone that could actually go in the center that people can hear. I'm not sure which one Nicole uses, but I'll try to get the link for you, Pamela, and I'll actually post that.
Okay. Sue Brooks has her hand up.
What's up, Sue?
Yes, thank you for recognizing me, Pamela and James. This is in response to something that Ben just asked about a little earlier, and that was not necessarily being able to see everybody in the room, but to know who's in the room. I'm in a few clubs, some of you may know. One is I'm an external partner in a corporate club. I'm not in that company, but I join in via Zoom. The other people, and there's other people who join in via Zoom. There's other people who are in person in a company corporate place conference room. The people online can see who's online. We could read each other's names. But how do we know who's in the room? Especially if you've never met them, if they're guests. Exactly. I see, Ben, you're nodding your head. What they do have at the front of the room is a whiteboard. And one of the officers places the names in very large capital letters of everybody who's in the room. One time when I was table topics master, I wanted to call on not just the people in the Zoom room, but the people in the conference room. So I saw, oh, okay, Kyle's there, Maddie's there, Rajiv is there, UA is there. Okay, great. So I know who to call on for table topics. So I knew people's names. And especially, as I stated, if they were guests, you could have a few people go and then you could call on the guest. And to your point about the microphone, they have people come to the front where the table lectern is and ask everybody to speak there. So there's not the crosstalk and the lots of other microphones. The other terrific hint that we have for that meeting is they place one of the laptops in front of the timer cards. If the person whose timer is in the room, this way the people in the room and everybody online can see the timer cards. You can see the red. You could see the green, you could see the yellow. No problems, no questions. So having the laptop face the timer cards and having the names of the participants on the whiteboard is super helpful. I just wanted to share that in case that would be useful for anybody else online. Thank you.
That's good stuff. Well said, Sue.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Lewis posted another question in the chat. Do
Just
you
got it.
have best practices for hybrid meetings? For example, we have two cameras, one for the room and another for the podium. However, if the Toastmaster is not leading the meeting, they may sit down and leave the podium camera empty. Is that okay? No, it's not okay. Also, it's a challenge if a timer is in the room and the time cards are not very visible to everyone. And I believe Sue somewhat addressed that. But if you could address his questions, please.
Of course. So you have two cameras in the room. That's great. If your Zoom master is the room, watch this. I'm going to do this to myself just so you see it. If the Zoom master is in the room and I walk away, Zoom master could turn off the camera. They could also enable the camera so the person at the podium can make sure, yes, they'll click the checkbox, yes, enable camera. So if the Zoom master is on the other side of the room and the person at the podium moves away, turn off the camera, because if someone else online is talking, the camera will shift over to them. Now for Toastmasters, okay. Is this okay? Yeah, it's okay. It happens. But you got to remember, when the camera shifts to somebody else in Zoom, and let's switch back to view for a second. Let's change the view back to speaker for a second. When you're in the speaker view, what happens is you're the primary speaker. And as you see in the Zoom, the little green box goes around what you're saying. When you're in the speaker view, and if Sue starts talking, go ahead a second. Just say something, Sue.
Hey, thank you so much for those helpful hints and tips, James. I'm taking lots of good notes.
Right. You notice how the green box switches over to her? That's an automatic Zoom feature. So if someone online automatically starts talking, it'll actually go over there. And then if there's nobody at the podium, you could just turn off their camera. So there's little tricks to be aware of. Now, the next question is this okay? Yeah, it's okay. Is it a challenge if the timer in the room and the time cards are not very visible to everyone? That's the very important question because we've seen, and I've seen that at our meetings. The timer is in person, the speaker is in person. People online have no idea what's going on. Have the timing cards in your Zoom, whether you're in person with a laptop. And this way, if need be, you see that timer change your background. So this way, everybody online knows it too. In a way, it's a nice communication. So this way, you're including everybody online with what you're doing in person. An easy way to do it, and I've done this, though I've never done this in an in-person contest, but this is a nice one to do. In PowerPoint, you make a PowerPoint so you have the timer background running for 5 minutes, and the moment it actually changes to 5:01, you change it to the green slide. And this also helps, and then you do the same for yellow and you do the same for red. It's also a nice safeguard because if you do it that way, you're paying attention to the speech, and when they're done, you just hit the space bar, you look at the number, and there's the time. You could set it the same way for table topics and evaluation, but that's just a personal choice if you want to do that. I think that answers that question. But I think it's important that the timer be in person if possible, or if you have it online, just make sure that whoever's the timer in person coordinate with someone online so this way they know what's going on. If it goes green, they could see it and they could change the background accordingly. It's just about communication.
Do we have any other questions? This is the time to get them. Get all those questions answered because I know we are all struggling with hybrid. Some do it better than others. Some are new at it. Some are thinking about doing it.
Maybe this will actually give you a little food for thought. Visit somebody who's got a hybrid. If they got a hybrid, go just give them a call. Say, hey, could I come to your hybrid meeting? And I'll just mention some names here from our side in 119. Our hybrid meeting was on Saturday mornings. I get a call from someone in Brookhaven. Hey, we're trying to get hybrid. Can I come to your meeting? Sure, no problem. He came by with a notepad, took notes, asked some questions. I answered his questions. I helped him out. He went back, took it to his meeting. He called me the next day, told me what he did. And I actually went through it. I said, that sounds good. He had all the steps in place and it worked. Another club, Babylon Babblers, called me and said, listen, we want to go hybrid. I'm like, sure. I said, could you get access to that meeting space before they're hybrid? Sure. They set up the Zoom. They went to the location. We ran it just like a regular meeting. I watched. They had their tablet and the cell phone. They ran the meeting. I made sure they could be heard. I said, when's your meeting? Thursday at 7 o'clock. I watched the Zoom. They ran it efficiently and smoothly. And from the podium on their tablet, I could still hear the people in the room. So I just watched and they said, James, is there anything else we need to do? I said, no, I think you got this from here. When I ran into her at the district conference last year, I said, how you doing? She's like, hybrids are going well. And that's why I say keep it simple. If you keep it simple, it's duplicatable. There's another question. Are podiums necessary for meetings? Ooh, that's a technical question. Not necessarily. One of the things, as we know from Toastmasters, we use it as a crutch, and that's a normal thing. And when we're actually speaking, we want to be more physical in the sense that we want to be able to emote, involve the audience. The challenge is, I'll use a Jim Roman expression. Once you're at the podium, how do you get away from it? You get so accustomed to being behind it because it's a security blanket. But we're here to talk to the people, not a podium. I mean, we're here, that's why we're in this. We want to become better speakers, better leaders, but we can't do so from behind a podium. We have to be able to address people and involve the audience because we want people to relate to what we're saying. So we want to have that freedom of movement, not just be behind a podium. We have two more questions. Lewis,
Actually,
any?
three more.
Oh, I'm behind. Uh, let's see. Basic question, Denise, how do you change the background on your Zoom to your picture? Oh, that's easy. You upload the picture in Zoom. When you sign into your Zoom account, you could actually put your picture there. And if not there, you go into the online version of your Zoom account through the web, sign in there, and you could upload your picture. Those are two different options. Um, I'm having problems finding them. Okay. Um, Lewis, any suggestions for individual evaluations, especially those in person to persons online? Um, yeah, when you're giving evaluations in person, print it out. Print out the evaluation before you leave the house. Yeah.
Good evening, everybody. Just a clarification on that. So that question was more for those right after the speech, right? Not the general evaluator or not the evaluator itself, but those feedbacks that typically people write in on the small sheet of paper and give physically to those that are presenting.
Correct. I get that. Sorry. When you go, I'll use Freehouse Toast because we use that as an because that's what we use. When you sign up to give a speech, the evaluation forms are there. So when you click the evaluation form, you should be able to see the PDF version of it online. If you have the laptop, you could type it out right there. If you printed it out, you could fill it out by hand. Um, that's the easiest way to give the evaluation. When you're online, you just go to the website, get the evaluation form, and you could type into the evaluation as they're giving, like in that 2 minutes after the speech. And then, simple tip, you read the evaluation. You just read what you wrote and try to stay within the time.
Also,
Uh,
before we move on, Lewis, there's also with the news base camp, there's also a feature they now have where you can get feedback from all of the members that were who attended the meeting. So you could actually send it to them so that they could give you their evaluation as well.
There's also something else I'm going to tie into that, Pamela. You know this one. In Basecamp, when you sign up to give a speech, you could declare your evaluator in the club and they'll get the form before the meeting. So, which should take you into TI to actually have the evaluation form. I only tried it once. I don't know if it went, if they, I don't know if they received it, but I still did it the old-fashioned way just so I was covered.
Yeah, it works. It actually does work well, and so does the other feature. If you want everyone to give feedback, that works. I've tried it out since they introduced New Base Camp. I'm actually impressed that they did that.
Ben's got a really good question. Ben, I'm going to read this out. Is it a good idea to limit the number of in-person and hybrid meetings, hold only Zoom meetings, and organize in-person social gatherings regularly? Hmm, that's a big question. So let's break this out into different parts. Is it good to limit the number of in-person and hybrid? You want to vary it back and forth because you don't want people to get used to one thing. For 3 years, we were used to the Zoom environment, so we were always in a box. We were limited on our space unless we stood up, which is the way we were traditionally. When we initially transferred to hybrid, it was challenging because everybody was so used to being in a limited spot. And now when you're hybrid, you have the freedom of movement and you can project as necessary or use a lot of the techniques, vocal variety, body language, the dynamics that were taught in Toastmasters in a real world environment versus getting loud in your house. So I think both are important because you practice. I'll use a theater example because I did theater for over 20 years. You practice on your home in a little small environment, but you also practice on stage in a larger environment to learn projection, learn how to express yourself, learn how to, I'm not going to do it, how your voice hits the back of the auditorium and you could still be effective. It's just practice, basically. Uh,
Yes.
and organize in-person social gatherings regularly. I think it's good to actually try to at least do one, oh, social gatherings. Yeah, I think that's good because it builds a camaraderie of your team. You learn about the people, not just being in a Zoom meeting or you're just focusing on roles. You want to learn the people, what's important to them. That goes back to the basic functionality. I'll give you a work example. Last 2 years, when we were still amidst the whole COVID thing, we weren't meeting in person. My boss said, let's meet for dinner this Saturday night, this day, this time. And we got dressed up and went out. We didn't talk business. We didn't talk anything work related. We just talked life about people. What's going on with your personal life? How's your family? It is more of a, it bridges the connection between business and personal. I guess that's the easiest way to describe it, because if you look at Toastmasters like The Office and it's work related, when you meet socially, ask whatever you want to know. How's that project you're doing? What's going on with you? Did you ever start that podcast? Or what's your next speech going to be? Or what do you plan to do next? Or has what you've been doing in Toastmasters, how has what you've learned in Toastmasters applied to your life or your job? What have you done differently? What have you learned from it? It opens the communication, and it's not just about giving a speech. It's how you've learned what you've learned in Toastmasters and applied it to your life. And that makes it personal. And that makes it important because you find out how outside of Toastmasters it benefits your life. I think that's the one connection we're trying to bridge and trying to communicate that. That's on us. And if we can convey that in ways, whether it be social media or whatever, people will see that and they'll be like, I want to be able to do that. And that comes back, that brings it back to the club meeting, inviting them to, that's a whole different conversation. But you get the idea, Jen, been helpful.
Yes.
Jason, not a question, but food for thought. I like food for thought. A district in Ireland, England, oh, I know where you're going, has a VPPR contest with a prize for club growth. Oh, we'd love for our own district. I saw the cheer mark, very nice. I'd love for our own district to have something similar to highlight how VPPR now has a multifaceted role and promotes the clubs within that district. I'm going to take that up a notch. Pamela, I'm going to enroll you on this one because you're on the district level. Get your district public relations manager in touch with every VPPR from the district to put something together. It's ambitious, but why not? Because think about it. I'll use District 119. We're 99 clubs. You got 99 VPPRs. So that's 99 different sets of ideas. Why not come together and just put something together mutually so you're all on the same page? I understand the fact that we're all officers, we're all coming from different areas, we all have different levels of expertise, but at the end of the day, we still got to follow the same rules when Toastmasters. We still got to follow the same guidelines with this speech. We still got to follow the same timing rules. So why can't we benefit from each other's knowledge? Maybe something that's going on in Division A could be beneficial to Division B, or something they're doing in Division C is something they're trying to work on in Division E. Why don't we benefit each other and try benefit from each other instead of trying to reinvent the wheel all the time? That's
Absolutely.
one challenge that we consistently experience. And that's why when we did hybrid, I said, here's my name, here's my phone number. You need me, you call me. And I'm going to do that right now for 83 for one reason. It's not about me anymore. It's about you guys. This is how we pay it forward. This is how we pass the torch. This is how we actually get the next generation of people involved in Toastmasters. We have to be the leaders for them so they learn to be leaders and step up for the next generation after them.
Yeah. And I want to add to that, Jason, so that you are aware, we actually have attempted to do something similar to this. However, the response from our clubs, I think two clubs, two VPPRs responded. So we had to pivot, and what we have done is highlight certain clubs and what they're doing in the newsletter. Assuming you're receiving the newsletters, because some people have opted out of our newsletters and others don't read them because they get too many Toastmasters emails. But we have attempted to do something similar to that. It's just that the district, for whatever reason, didn't have a big interest in it, I guess, or they weren't getting the emails. I don't know for sure, but we'll definitely give it another try.
Pamela, may I actually recommend an idea that actually might be a feather in your cap if you want to pass this out?
Sure.
We're in TLI season. There's
Mhm,
VP PRs at every TLI.
mhm,
Pass the ball, pass the idea. Because if it comes from someone on the district level, that's like whoever's the facilitator for the VPPR, pass the idea. This way, with each TLI session, the idea is passed along. And when the idea is passed along, everybody gets the information. I hate to say word of mouth works better than advertising, but in this case, it technically does. Because once one person finds out about it, they take it back to the club, and the club finds out about it.
mhm. Good idea. Thank you. Do we have any more questions for James? Or you guys got it all down pat? You know exactly what to do, and tomorrow you're going to give the best hybrid meeting you've ever given before. Super.
Sue,
Yeah, does anybody else have any hints or tips if they've run hybrid meetings both in a corporate club or community club that they could share with the group here?
yes, I'd like to hear what your thoughts are if you have done the hybrids. What have you experienced and what lessons can you share from what you've gone through that could benefit us?
Jason.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. Fellow Toastmasters, honorable guests, as a brand new, spanking new hybrid club, we found that Eventbrite, it's free. It has an AI feature where it does everything for us as far as plugging in, making it nice and sweet sounding. And I've gotten one or two guests, sometimes three or four, signing up every time I've done on Eventbrite. Now, not all of them have shown up, but now at least I have an email and contact address to send them and follow up down the line. So I recommend Eventbrite because it's free. And any videos that we've been doing, I've also been getting editing savvy. So uploading on YouTube or even just my work base account. But I've been doing quick videos, about a minute. So in essence, I have an advertisement platform for our storytelling club. We really needed it.
Jason,
And
if I may add something to you, when you put your videos up on social media, hashtag them. Please do. You need five of them, five specific ones. Toastmasters, public speaking, the location that you live in, primarily the state, the county, and then if possible the town. Because think about it. You take the wide demographics and you narrow it down. I've tried that. It works. Give it a shot. Mark, what's on your mind?
Hi everyone, I'm Mark Ryan. I'm the VP of Public Relations for Corporate Club. Um, I we do a hybrid meeting every session because we have members in multiple locations and it's through work. So it was also nice to hear your side of the clubs and see how how having different sets of equipment affects it. Um, but I've found very effective ways, like you had mentioned on Zoom, changing the background for the timer to indicate the time is a great solution. For table topics as well, we've had one particularly well appreciated session where for in person, there was a bag of small objects that people could pick out and tell a little story about, and then people online could still answer a question that was preset with one of the numbers to suggest. So multiple ways that you can play with table topics with something like that.
I like that. That's really good. Another one we tried was started a story. Person had 15 seconds, and then the next person had to pick up the story from their point of view of what they wanted to add to it. It turned into a train wreck, but it was fun.
Anyone else?
There's something in the chat.
My
Jason,
thing is
storytelling YouTube.
trying to get people to come back in person.
Yes.
That's not working for us very well. I think everybody has become so accustomed to staying in their PJs or their sweats and being present online, that no one is rushing to come back to in person. And everyone who has come back in person have always remarked that it's so much different from being online
It
and how
is.
much they appreciate being in person, but we still can't get people to come in.
That's a good point, Avril. And the thing is, we learned over the past 3 years, Zoom gives you that element of comfort that you don't have to travel, you don't have to get out of the house, you don't have to leave on a Sunday night or a Sunday night when you're tired and you're like, you could keep your camera off and it won't be a big deal. But I'll tell you, there's a synergy you get from being in person with people that you can't replace from being online. Yes, somewhat there's an emotional connection and an understanding of stuff, but coming from a guy from a theater background, there's a big difference between speaking to a computer versus speaking to a live audience and getting that live audience feedback that you don't get on a Zoom. Because in a Zoom, you could actually say something and everybody's muted so you don't get a reaction and you could just keep going. In person, it's different because you got to pace yourself because of their reaction. I'll give you an example if I may. I was competing in the contest in the fall and I actually shared a story from work. I work at Home Depot. And I shared the story and I told the story of what happened and I told the other person's reaction of what they said, which was disrespectful. And I said it the way they said it. The context was I actually they asked if I worked in the department. I said, no, sir, I'm sorry, I don't know specifics. I don't work the department. And the person said to me, then what good are you? And that was the way they said it. And when I said it at the contest level, about 15 people just went, and I didn't expect it. It threw me off. I was like, uh, uh. It's the same as the Zoom environment in the sense that you have to be prepared for the unexpected. When in a physical environment, when you're really with people and you're not used to a reaction, when there is one, give them a second. You got to let it sit. Because if you dive into it too quickly, it's the same as laughter. If people are laughing at something that you just said and you just keep going forward, they could miss it. You gotta wait for the audience. You gotta read the audience and wait for them to react a second, but be aware of it so you could dive back into it.
Right. Avril, I would also give those members a challenge to come in person at least one time. Just challenge them to do that. Think about a Broadway play, and you can use this as an example. You watch a Broadway play on television, you get one experience. You go to a Broadway play in person, totally different experience. So use that analogy or something similar to that, and then challenge them. Come in person, do your speech in person, see the audience, feel the energy from the audience. And if you still want to continue to do it virtually, then that's their choice.
But I will tell, very good point, Pamela. But I will tell you this, coming from someone with a theater background, there's a big difference between when you're practicing the lines on your own, there's nobody there, you could vary your pace, versus when you have an audience and you have to be conscious of your pacing so all your words are heard, the dynamics of your voice are understood, and that your point you're trying to make hits home. Okay, that's as far as I could go with that. Ben and Sue, both of you have questions, but Ben, you had your hand raised first. Please go ahead, sir.
I think, or I believe it is extremely unlikely that people will attend in-person meeting as they did before the pandemic. It will never happen again because the Zoom meeting just have many advantages. You not only save the time and money in the transportation, you have many more features on the Zoom. It's easier to share your slides, and you can see all the people This is convenience. Of course, you have the more engagement, more interpersonal action on the in-person meetings. But Zoom meeting have so many advantages. That's why the in-person meeting, the people will never. So the situation, the in-person meeting will never happen again. That's my opinion.
It's understandable because there
Yes.
are the advantages in a Zoom meeting that you can do that you can't do in an in-person, which I
Yes.
get. For example, I'm just gonna play around, so just so you see it. In the Zoom, I could actually do, well, I don't have anything different. I could do this. I could show you a background, right? I could actually put up this, but you have to remember too, now the Toastmaster parameters have changed on Zoom backgrounds. And I saw this in contests last year. Someone wanted to actually give a presentation with their speech. And at the time I was in contest as Sergeant at Arms for the contest, I said, "What?" She's like, "Yeah, I have a multi-slide presentation." And I know the rule book. I'm thinking, that's not going to fly. And I texted the contest chair. I said, "I think we have a little bit of a situation." So you got to remember, if you're sharing something as a physical prop, this is all I got right now. If you got a physical prop, it's got to be related to your speech. Otherwise, you don't want to use it. Remember, this is called Toastmasters, not prop masters. That's my take on that. But if you are going to have a physical prop like a background or an outfit, it has to pertain to the context of your speech. If you are going to be doing a presentation, keep it to one slide. But you have to remember you could only do that on Zoom because I will tell you in the contest level, and excuse my saying, they're going to ding you on that. If you're so reliant on the background versus the context of your speech, that'll fall into the judging because in the judging, they're judging your speech, not the prop. But that's my take on that. Sue, you were up next. What's your question?
Thank you. It's two comments to what Avril was saying about in person. There's two things I want to say. One, snacks. If you're in person, you can have snacks or food. When I went to the District 119 conference, not only did I get food and snacks, but here's my second point. James will give you a hug. It's that human connection. I'm not a stalker or anything, but seriously, I got a chance to see James in person. I got a big hug, and I got a chance to hug my other friends too. And that's enough. On to Glenn.
Okay, Glenn, you had a question?
Yeah, more like a comment. Hey, so, and James, really nice presentation. Thank you. You know, I'm listening to your points, and a lot of these things hit home. We've been doing hybrid for quite a while. One thing you may have touched on, and I missed it, but we do use um, a dedicated internet line. We actually purchased a T-Mobile card that we use, and it makes our life so much easier because it used to be in the past with library connections and things like that, we lost it. So we decided to chip in and buy not only a laptop, but a T-Mobile card, and it works very well for us.
Nice. You know, that's also an option if you can do it. You know, when it comes time to all the external features that we want to add into our meetings, that's on the responsibility of the club. And also, I hate to say it this way, is it in the budget for it? That's usually one question we ask. I'm a gadget person, so I have a lot of stuff. So if I could use what we have to improve the meeting, so be it. But then if someone actually wants to go out buy an external camera with a remote and a Bluetooth microphone, and the club can pay for it, and we use this for our meetings to make the meetings better, fine, that's great. Because when it comes down to it, we're all in the same house. We all want to get better. We all want to improve. It's the same as if we're going to a potluck and you have this dish that you've been making for years and you're like, someone's going to try. And you make this homemade lasagna with your mom's sauce and you bring it to and you bring it to the family, right? You bring it to the party and you're like, where did you get this? What store did you buy this? Oh, it's my mom's recipe. So it's like when it comes to a hybrid meeting, it's like a potluck. Everybody brings something different to the table. You bring your experience, you bring your stories, sometimes you bring equipment. or in some cases, Glenn, I'll say, you bring Wi-Fi. So that's something that you're contributing to the group as a whole. And here's the backup to that. If you're not available, who could access it so the meeting could still run the same way? That's one thing you got to communicate with the officers. But I like the idea of the dedicated Wi-Fi. That actually changes the game a little bit. I like
That
that.
was a big problem for us because every time someone was out, we didn't have either the Wi-Fi or the laptop to put our own equipment together.
Yeah, that's one issue you might run into. If your Zoom is safeguarded, like if there's password protected on the Zoom account, which we do, if you try to access the host account and they give you the ID and password, they'll get an email notification. Someone at this location is trying to access to the account. Please give them this code. You just have to have a communication with them that, by the way, this is the code so the meeting could run.
Well,
Yeah.
I'll add one more to that, yeah. For that Zoom connection, what we do is we put in our Toastmasters admin account as the Zoom account because that goes to all the officers. So at least one of the officers will get uh, the code. And so everyone doesn't have to be there. You don't have to keep calling these people for it. It
One
helps
thing
us
you
a lot.
one thing you can do with the officers, each club has a dedicated email just specifically for the officers. It's officers dash whatever the club number is at toastmasters.org. So you could send a message. It's the same as when we're in a meeting and you say you got to send a message to the officer, say, could we have a meeting at this day or officer meeting or something you need to discuss? Send them the codes. So this way everybody has a record of it in case something goes wrong. You have a backup.
I find it interesting. Phyllis, I want to know what library does this. Phyllis says the library provides us with a laptop and an iPad on a floor stand to use during our meetings. That's
Okay, what
very
town?
generous.
Okay, Phyllis, you got to hook us up. What library and what town are you talking about here?
It's called the Library of the Chatham Library in Chatham, New Jersey.
Wow. I don't know any library that does that.
Yes, there's someone who comes and sets it up, the room, sets everything up before we come to the meeting.
You have connections and you gotta give some names and some people who we can talk to because the one thing about the library system, they're connected. In the Suffolk County here on Long Island, there's a bunch of them connected. Where you're at in Chatham, New Jersey, they got to be connected to a bunch of other people in Morris County. There's got to be a way.
Yeah,
Just
I
I
love
wanted to
that.
share that Newark Public Library, when we met there, they also provided that service for a minimal cost.
Yeah, there's that too. You have to don't be afraid to ask questions. Sometimes they do offer it, but if they actually say it's going to cost, just ask questions. The more times you ask questions with things or information that you don't have or don't know, the better you'll get. And when it comes to going hybrid, a lot of it's trial and error. You have to see what works. Okay, best practices, see what we could do next time, how to improve this. Or if the sound is glitching out, how could we fix this? I'll give you an example. When we did the spring conference last year for District 119, we were at Mercer University in New York City, and it was a hybrid event. I've done hybrid events. So three of us had laptops. They had the mixing board of all the sound. I was monitoring the Zoom. So this way, what people see in person, we hear it online. And I had a headset microphone to communicate with the tech guys. So if the sound went out, I'll say, we lost sound. And they'll tweak a few buttons and if the sound kicks in, I'll give them the thumbs up just to let them know. It's communication. If things go right, great, let us know. If things go wrong, yeah, you better tell us really quickly. Because when I'm trying not to curse, when it goes sideways, and it can happen, you just got to figure out how to get out of it to keep moving. In contests, I'll tell you, I've seen people's Zoom freeze. I've seen their mics go out. I've seen connections go. It's all about communication. Have their numbers in your phone. Be able to reach out to them if there's an issue. We just want to make things, when it comes down to working behind the scenes on a lot of stuff, and especially as an officer when you're running a hybrid, we just want stuff to work, period. And if it doesn't work, what do we need to do to make it work? That's pretty much the bottom line to it. Do you folks have any other questions?
Sue has her hand raised.
Thank you. Yes. Something you said earlier in the program, James, and it brings to mind not just club meetings that we are a member of, but also a number of us here on the call are area directors. And when we do our club visits, we're looking to see what's working and what kind of support we can give to those that we're serving. One of the things I had to learn and adjust, you mentioned earlier, sometimes people are asked to go to a different room. Some of the corporate clubs, for example, are usually in the community room A or whatever, or the horse room or the pig room or whatever it is. And sometimes they might get reassigned to the cat room. So their setup might be different. They might have, like you were saying, different issues with the cameras or the audio. They might be preempted by something that's happening at the corporate level. They might have to go to a smaller room. What I've learned in my visits is that don't judge them harshly if they have to get adjusted and have a little bit of a delay in their start time. Don't judge them harshly if they've been reassigned to another meeting room. Don't judge them harshly just because they're dealing with something they weren't anticipating. It wasn't like, oh, we're disorganized. Corporate told them you need to go here today. So there's a lot of being flexible, giving people grace, and having a sense of understanding. And whether it's your own club that you're participating in and your area director is visiting you, or if you're an area director, for example, and you're visiting, have a little bit of flexibility. Like you said, it's not always going to be working, but once everything gets rolling, everybody's having fun and raising their hands for table topics and listening to some great speeches and evaluations. So I've learned not to worry too much about exact start time because they had to go to another meeting room. So thank you so much for sharing that earlier in the program.
You're
Yes.
welcome. I
And
apologize, but I'm gonna have to leave. Unfortunately, I have something I have to take care of here at the house. Folks, thank you so much for actually coming to this. I really appreciate it. Pamela has my contact information, and I mean this truly. Contact me. If you want to go hybrid, if you need help with hybrid, or if you're doing a hybrid meeting and you want me to actually just sit in to make sure everything's good, just contact me. I'm here
Thank
to
you.
help. And besides, the other thing about it is by having that, it's like making somebody a co-host during a contest. You got somebody watching your back, and I'd be happy to do that. So,
thank
Pamela,
you
thank you
so
for
much,
today. I
James. And
appreciate you doing this. Folks, thank you so much for attending today.
thank you. Have a good night.
Good night. Yeah, bye bye. Thank you, James.
And thank you,
Thank you,
everyone
everybody.
who joined us. I hope you have a great night as well.
Thank you, Pamela, and thank you, Sue.
When
Bye-bye.
will we get the recordings, Sue?
1 second.